Ready to collapse time, crush limitations, and turn potential into reality? This is a journey through real lessons from those who've walked the path before you. Welcome to Layers of Leadership, hosted by Dr. Michael Marion Jr.
All right. Welcome to Layers of Leadership podcast. My name is Dr. Michael Marion, and I have the honor and pleasure to have a dear friend with me, Kenneth Johnson, the CEO of KJ2 Productions, better known as a writer, a director, a producer with 15 years of industry experience, known for being one of the leading media production companies in the region. And I would even go beyond and say the regions, because I've seen you doing stuff internationally all over the country.
Yeah.
And so just happy to have you here today, man.
Happy to be here,
and looking forward to having a great conversation, hearing more about your leadership journey. As folks may not know, you're a passionate storyteller, been all around the world, all around the country. So 90 different countries.
96 now.
96? Are you kidding me?
96.
You are always on the move. Avid art collector.
Yes.
Fashionista. Always about your fashion.
I don't know about that, brother, but I try to compete with you a little bit.
Nah,
but,
stop that. Very active in the community. Somebody that I've definitely kept an eye on and kind of modeled myself after, just being very engaged and just really having your ear to the ground on what's going on. Been involved and received awards from Capital Public Radio, very involved in EO, Entrepreneur Organization, Sacramento, Metro Chamber PAC, to name a few. But you also have done some amazing award-winning documentaries and stuff in West Africa and in Haiti.
Yeah.
And so I'm just excited to hear more about that. I know a couple of awards that you've received: Small Business of the Year Award, Sacramento Business Journal's Most Admired CEO, and then here recently, the top 20 change makers in the region.
Yeah.
Kenneth, you are killing it. Man, I am so proud of you, and I just I'm thinking that your journey and your story is going to be so helpful for a lot of the people that watch this podcast. And so, thank you again for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for providing a platform, Dr. Marion, for exposing and telling stories of individuals out there that are paving ways, or in certain capacities, of their own leadership skills, of their own success, or their own, and that's measured in different ways, obviously. Success is one of those things that's an intangible idea of where do you want to get in life. And that might be a different measure for a lot of different people.
Sure.
For me, success has always been in the capacity of, what do I want to do? How do I make an impact, and how do I pay it forward?
Sure.
And how am I providing for other people that are in my circle, so to speak, right? And I have always been impressed with looking at others that are around me that are doing some incredible things, you being one of them. I've mentioned you, Darrell Teat, Chris Johnson, brothers like that for me have always been an inspiration to be good fathers, good role models, good community leaders, good activists. And all that's done is pave a way for me to say, hey, I want to follow in that direction. But I'm also going to create my own pathway.
Sure.
Doesn't mean I have to fall on the coattails of someone else. I'm just looking at that as like, okay, that's a way I can circumvent some of the things that I might run into. And then seeking mentorship. You've mentored me in a number of capacities, not even from a direct mentor-mentee relationship, but also just from afar.
A friend, yeah.
I don't know if you remember the article we probably read in NELP, us both being alumni of NELP. There was an article called Me.Inc.
Oh, yeah, Mel Woods.
Mel Woods.
Absolutely.
How to run yourself like a corporation.
Yes.
And those individuals that are on the board are your mentors.
Oh, absolutely.
And some of those mentors are like official mentor-mentee relationships, but I always say, I have so many mentors that are out there that are just from afar.
Yeah.
I look at the Margaret Fortunes of the world, or I look
goodness.
at the Scott Syfaxes of the world, and I just see how they navigate the space, and I want to emulate them.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's funny because I was thinking about when I first met you, and I don't know if you remember this.
I remember specifically. I
met you. you were at a gala for Los Rios.
It was at CRC.
Yes.
Yes, it was their
Foundation board. Kenneth Cooper, my dear friend.
Yes.
You had the coldest seersucker suit on, and I think you had some all white Air Force Ones.
Yes.
I can't remember. And I was like, this brother's
No.
clean.
I did not have the Air Force Ones.
What'd you have on?
I had Nubucks. I had the Bucks.
Oh, that's
the
right.
Bass Nubucks, the blue and white.
That's too funny.
And you had made a comment about my seersucker suit.
I was like, this brother clean.
You know, me being from the South,
Yep.
that was like a popular thing in the South. People out here thought that was wild. And I was like, this is
I
a
loved
normal.
it.
Yeah.
I have actually like 2 seersucker
I've seen you
suits.
wear them. I've
Yeah,
seen you
so,
wearing them.
You know, I'm all in.
I've seen you wearing them. Yes.
But man, let's go back, Kenneth. You know, our families are both from the same region.
Mm-hmm.
You're originally from New Orleans. My family is from Mississippi.
Yeah.
And so not too far away. But let's take it all back. Tell me about your upbringing.
You know, man, this is an interesting story because I think about that on a constant basis. I just got back I'm from New Orleans just earlier this week, and I'm actually going back. This is Mardi Gras season right now. Mm-hmm. So, you know, all the folks out there from Alabama, they try to claim Mobile, Alabama. They claim Mardi Gras started in Alabama. I
don't know about that. I don't think I've ever heard that.
It is a
Really?
true story. I do not negate that, but we
Alabama?
took it to a different level.
I'll agree with that.
But Mobile, Alabama was the first landing place of Mardi Gras. So this is Mardi Gras season right now, and I'm really engaged with some things that's going on with my cousin, who's a big shot right now of Zulu, the Zulu crew. So I'm going back and ride in the parade. But the unique thing about being raised in the South is that, you know, the South has its own casualties when it comes to this concept of like segregation. Sure. And, you know, my parents, I listened to the stories of my parents growing up and literally having this concept of colored fountains and whites only fountains and sitting in the back of the bus. And I listened to stories about, you know, my father being involved with the Black Panthers, and there's just some unique situations that was going on. When I was a kid, I go back and I look and I think I was distinctively disadvantaged compared to a lot of people that, you know, my peers, you know, maybe people I went to school with, or my parents put me through private school. Mm-hmm. We didn't have means.
Sure.
You know, they had to struggle to provide that for me, right? To give us an opportunity to get a good education. But when I go back and I look at kids that I went to school with, I wasn't doing some of the same things that they were doing during the summertime. You know, they were going to trips to Europe. They were going on trips to, you know, whatnot. I was going to the public pool to swim. Mm-hmm. You know, I was going to the public park to play tennis or whatever the case may be. I just didn't have that capacity. But when I go back and look, I know that I was distinctively disadvantaged. And I'm talking about from a tangible standpoint, right?
Gotcha.
You know, just access to certain things or privy to certain privileges, right? But the unique thing is I never felt disadvantaged because I had a loving family.
Yep.
I had a very unique relationship with my grandparents.
Okay.
On both sides, actually. My mother's father actually was close in my life. My mother's mother had passed away when she was 14, so I never knew my maternal grandmother, but my paternal grandparents on my dad's side, I was very close to my grandmother. I used to say, my grandmother didn't have a college education, but I said she had a PhD in grandma, and she used to know how to grandma, bro.
Come on.
You know?
Come on.
And that was a very distinctive and unique experience for me that I just thought was natural. Okay. Right? Growing older and looking back, I was very fortunate to have that type of situation. And I have this saying with my cousins. We have this hashtag. We say, born cousins but raised brothers.
There we go.
We were literally raised like brothers. There's like 8 of us that were like, we slept in the pull-out bed at my grandparents' house, head to toe, 3 of us in the bed, you know. Yep. And that was just like our upbringing. You know, it was, I would change that for nothing in the world. Yeah. And that's when I start to look back and I say, hey man, I was not disadvantaged. I was actually had gifted a lot of nuggets in life when I was a kid because of that sense of family orientation. And I was raised by a lot of women. Okay. You know, a strong mother, still a strong mother, a strong grandmother, aunts that were very actively involved in our lives. Not that the men were dormant, sure, but we just had a strong presence of women in our family, which now, even to this day, I still have a lot of, I'm very emotional, I'm very passionate. I believe in male-to-male intimacy. Yes. If I care about you. I love you. I
think
don't
you
have
told
any
me that the
problem.
other
Yeah.
day when we talked. She was like, man, I just want you to know I love you.
Yeah,
And
I don't have
that
any
was
problem.
So cool,
I think the machoism in that
Sure.
capacity more demoralizes us being able to have engagement, true engagement. So I am a big proponent of that. Like, hey, if we can dialogue and we can remove the bravado in certain conversations, we can have really intrinsic and really transparent conversations that now build strong foundations for friendships. That makes sense?
Absolutely. No, 100%. And like I said, when we talked the other day and you ended the call and you was like, hey, man, I just want you to know I love you, man. And I was like, man, I appreciate that. I love you too.
Yeah.
Because it's real. You're absolutely right. And in our society, especially when we were growing up, it was probably less acceptable and people would be like, oh, what are you talking about, this whole masculinity thing?
Sure.
But it's interesting as I look back now, when every morning I start my day about 5:15 and my boys get up around 6 and they come in there, they give me a hug, I give them a kiss and tell them I love them, I tell them to win the day. Just because, to your point, it's important for me to make sure they understand, like, I understand that in society we have to play a role, but it's also this other role that you have to play, which is love and joy,
100%,
and all of that. And so I'm with you 100%.
We have to stay, especially as black men.
Yeah,
we need to get away from maligning ourselves or, bringing ourselves down. It's okay to extend the fact that, hey, man, you're really good at this, and I appreciate that about you, and I want you to know that.
Absolutely.
I have no problems, no quarrels in thinking that I'm the answer to it all. I want to make sure that I'm leaning into individuals like yourself to give me inspiration.
It's a community, man.
Yeah.
It's a community.
And you've always talked about that container, that community. You've always professed on that, and I appreciate that leadership as well.
Thank you. So tell me, growing up New Orleans, then you end up going to Xavier.
Went to Xavier.
Phenomenal institution.
Yeah.
And got your bachelor's, and then shortly after that got your master's. So tell me about that journey of being in Xavier.
Yeah, growing up, again, I'm going back to that narrative of growing up in, I didn't come, this is going to sound cliche, but I didn't come from anything. I didn't get a privileged life.
Gotcha.
So I wasn't given these tools to say, hey, man, I wasn't given a business as a third generation, second generation business. I didn't get any of that, right? What I got was experiences that I watched and I paid attention to, right? I was the benefactor of a lot of strong personalities and a lot of good role models. But no one gave me the game plan, right? No one gave me the book, like, hey, this is how you do it.
This is the path.
Right. So I was always a creative. I've always been a creative. And the unique thing, I actually told this story a couple of days ago in one of my groups that I'm in. They said, bring a piece that is important to you. And I brought this camera.
Okay.
And it's an old Sony Beta camcorder, right?
Okay.
when I went to college, giving a little bit of backstory, I would see creativity all the time in New Orleans, right? New Orleans is a creative town.
Yep.
Incredibly, I love being from New Orleans. I'm New Orleans to the bone. My girl always tells me, people from New Orleans, walk in a house and you're like, oh, you got Fleur de Lis here, you got the Saint stuff here. I'm always going to represent that, right? But the unique thing is I would see creative people all over the city. But the challenge was I didn't know how to monetize creativity because I would see them on the streets dancing or painting and it was always for like peddling for change. So I didn't know how to think, how do I take a skill set and make money off of it, right? Not that it was about money, but how do I make a living off of that? So I kind of suppressed that. When I was in college, I remember getting a check, like a Pell Grant or something like that I got. What are you supposed to do with your Pell Grant?
What are you supposed to do?
What are you supposed to do?
What did I do? No, you're supposed to buy books, pay your rent, all of those things. Tuition.
You know what I did? Bought me some J's.
Oh, I probably did the same thing.
Bought me some J's, and then I bought me a camera. I remember spending like $700, which was a lot of money at that time.
Back then.
For buying a camera. And what I did with that camera, I started, even I think in high school, I started recording just random stuff, right? If we were playing basketball, we had a little dunk contest, I'd record that. If we were going on a trip, doing like a road trip, I'd record that. Pledging, when I became, pledging a fraternity in college, I would pledge all of our step shows. I would record all of our step shows. So I would just documenting everything. People were like, KJ here, KJ come. with the camera. But I was recording everything. Did not know how to edit. So I was just stacking tapes. And then anything I wanted to watch, I had to go back and play it back or hook it up to the TV with the RCA cables and look at it. But I didn't know how to do but I knew I was creative. And that was just like a passion that I had.
Especially back then.
Yeah.
To be able to recognize that. It's funny that you said it because I have a buddy named John Mazik who done stuff with Snoop and a lot of film in LA that I went to school with. And he was the exact same way in college. He walked around with a camcorder or a camera and just has footage that should never be released.
Tell me about it, brother. There's some stuff that was like, when I would start to look at it, I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot I recorded, and I'm talking everything. When I was, on the phone with a girl, I would record myself, how I would talk to her on the phone, what music I was playing. It was just it was a passion of mine, but I didn't know how to monetize that. So when I graduated from college, I went kind of the normal route. I was thinking, I can't do anything creative with this, so let me just go and follow status quo. Okay. Went and got me a job, worked in corporate America. I had about 5 years of corporate American experience, worked in pharmaceutical, surgical sales.
Really?
Made some really I made some really good business acumen skills, right? And the key to that was, after about 6 years in corporate America, I had this epiphany. I was coming back from a golf trip with some buddies in the Bahamas. I got on the plane, and I literally took my lap out, and I typed my letter of resignation.
Oh, wow.
Now, the key to that was, this was 2008, right? 2008 is a big marker because that was the day, the year that the housing market crashed. Yep. This was probably March of 2008. If I would have waited a couple of months, I probably would have never made that leap of faith. But what I did was I typed my letter of resignation because I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to go back to film school. Typed my letter of resignation, and my boss even thought I was going crazy. Like, what do you, they counter-offered back, and they were like, are you sure you want to?
Wow.
And I literally was thinking in my mind, I wanted to do this. I had a little nest egg saved and whatnot, so I was like, this is a perfect time for me to do it. But the key to that, like I said, was the timing. So my journey was, I went back to school, not because I wanted to be a cinematographer, or I wanted to be an editor or a director. It was more so because I was making films while I was working still with a nucleus of guys. My job eventually moved me to LA.
Oh,
and I was making films.
I was going to ask you. I was wondering how you got out to the West Coast.
I was making some films, independent films, and I was the producer. And what that was basically I was paying, at that particular time, I was the guy paying for the film. I mean, these were low budget,
That's all right.
$3,000 to $4,000 here or whatever. But we were making really cool content. This was before the TikTok era and the Instagram era. We were making grassroots content.
Wow.
And I was producing the content, but I couldn't convey to the technical people that I was hiring how I wanted it shot or how I wanted it edited.
Okay.
So my passion for going back to school was not necessarily to dive into a craft. I wanted to learn the business so then I can be a better leader.
Think about that.
When I'm leading people, to be able to convey to them in a very technical grassroots term how I want this done, right? That makes sense?
Incredible.
So that was really the passion for that. And then I also found out through that process, this is what I like to do. This is the things that I don't like to do. So how do I now navigate my space in that?
But the maturity to be able to recognize that then and saying, hey, I need to go back to school to be able to pick up some of these skills to make me better and help me elevate the work that I do was huge.
And I learned that, ironically, in corporate America, because I remember getting bosses, kind of circulating through that process. And these folks were coming from different industries or whatnot, and they would come and be your supervisor, but they didn't know what you did on a day-to-day basis. So it always challenged me to have that level of respect for them, because it's like, we used to say this in pharmaceutical sales, you haven't carried the bag. Like we would, carry literally a bag of drugs that we're going to doctor's office. But this guy would come in, or this woman would come in and be your supervisor, but they never carried the bag. And that was my element. It's like, I don't want anyone to ever think I'm leading them, but I never carried the bag.
Carried the bag, which is big.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about this before on Layers of Leadership. Just being able to come in at the ground level, do the kind of the grunt work that will allow you to kind of elevate.
Sure.
And some people like to just jump to the front of the line without being able to really, figure it out and understand, all right, I need to carry the bag for a little while.
This episode is brought to you by Systems to Solutions. Think smarter, work better. Welcome to Systems to Solutions.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's, I mean, you have to have that knowledge of what it is that you're leading.
Absolutely.
And then one of the other biggest transitions was, I think, for myself, was that I quickly realized that, and this is one of the things I think I got, probably one of the biggest components that I received out of Nehemiah Emerging Leaders program was, from a leadership standpoint, I knew that I had to figure out what I'm good at and what I'm not.
Yeah.
Humility is a key word in leadership, right?
Say that again.
So if I'm sitting around and I'm looking around the table and I'm the smartest one at the table, I'm doing something wrong.
You're at the wrong table.
Right? I'm at the wrong table.
Yep.
I need to be at tables with people that are smarter than me, because how am I going to excel, right? So when I started to really ascertain that, I started to, because being in business for yourself is not an easy feat. In California, by no means, right? Especially in the creative space. Creative space, Sacramento's not known for this like super creative hub, right? So I'm a big
Tons
advocate.
of dollars pouring in.
No, it's not. You know, people think you got to go to
Not
LA.
yet. Not yet.
We're trying to change that narrative.
There we go.
Right? I advocate hugely for creative money, dollars, opportunities staying here. But when I learned in NELP was, you know, one of the, I know you remember taking this. I still know my top 5 strengths. Mine is woo, communication, it is competition, it is activator, and it's positivity. And what I did was,
all of that.
I realized that those are the things that's my natural DNA, right? I had to, one of the biggest keys in leadership is delegating responsibility.
Yes.
And more important than that is delegating responsibility and then empowering those that you delegated that responsibility to make decisions.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And step away from it. Because I always say this phrase: if it takes me 10 hours to do what you can do in one, there is absolutely no reason for me to do it.
Yep.
Because the one equalizer is time.
100%.
You could have $1 billion in your pocket right now, and I can have 0. The one thing you cannot get more than me is time. Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So when someone says, "Oh, I'm a great time manager," I'm always thinking, how do you manage time? Time is going to tick the same pace it's going to tick for you,
everybody.
for me.
Yeah.
So it's how you manage yourself within the confines of time is what I figured out. Like, how do I do that?
That's a nugget.
So when I started to think about that, I said, okay, in order for me to scale a business, number one, I got to think about, don't worry so much about the bottom line. Bottom line is like, okay, what is it going to cost me to hire Dr. Marion to help me do this, right? I'm so focused on what it's going to cost me, I got to think about what is it going to gain me.
Wow.
So if I hire you to do certain things that I'm not good at, what that's going to gain me is time. That time is going to allow, I can allocate that time to go do something that I'm good at, to either now bring more business in, which makes more opportunities or resources for us,
Opens
or to
more
go focus on
doors.
something that I'm really good at.
Yep.
So that is one of the biggest keys that I've learned from
that.
NELP.
That
And
is
once I applied that,
big.
it helped me scale a business to a degree where now I don't have to do everything in the business. I delegate responsibility, and I've built a uniform team to help support that.
What you just said, people go get their MBA to learn.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah.
So going back a little bit, so how did you get from LA to Sacramento?
So LA from Sacramento is a really good, going back to the kind of concept of bigger fish, smaller pond,
Gotcha.
right?
Okay.
Everyone does what I do in LA. You could throw a rock. I always say that about Teslas. You could throw a rock and hit a Tesla in Sacramento, right?
Absolutely.
You could throw a rock and hit a filmmaker in LA. You could throw a rock and hit a director in LA, an actor. So I was like, this is a very saturated market. Not that I don't think I could succeed in that area, but I started to think, where could I go to really plant some roots? So I had an opportunity to do some work up here. And what was key to that was like, okay, if this is a smaller pond, I could be a bigger fish.
So real quick, was KJ2 Productions created in LA, or did you start
created
it
in
out
LA.
here? It was created in LA. Okay.
And then it transferred here when I started to realize where we kind of sunk our teeth into. And this is, I'm just going to give some nuggets here, for people.
Please.
What I looked at was, came out here, the first thing I had to fight was this kind of concept of like, what is our craft worth, right? LA was kind of a normal, like everybody was on union and there was standard rates for everything, whether it was editing, cinematography, audio, production, standard rates. You came to Sacramento, they weren't used to those rates. So if you were saying, hey,
You're right
I
about
charge
that.
I charge X amount of dollars an hour, they were like, can you do it for 15? It was like, sure.
Take it.
So there's this funny notion. My first job I ever did, I did a job for a nonprofit organization here. I put about 38 hours into this job, right?
Okay.
You know what I got paid for that job?
No idea.
About $150. 170, I think it was it was $150 that I got a check. That was my first check I ever got in my life for doing a professional job. And you know what? In Sacramento. I ain't gonna tell you the person, the client, but because they still owe me some money. But $150, right?
Okay.
I was ecstatic to get that check, Doc. I was ecstatic because I was like, I'm getting
big.
paid to do this now. Yeah. But I worked 30-something hours, and I brought on another guy to help me do it. So I had to split that. It wasn't all $150 for me. I had to split it. So with that being said, it was like, but I was happy because I was like, oh, okay, I can make money doing this now. And I remember doing this out of my mother's like little office. I was editing. I was doing all the production work, dog barking in the background, meeting people at Starbucks, and that was my professional, takeoff. Mm-hmm. But what I realized was one of the keys was, okay, and that particular piece that we produced got shown at Sac State in front of about like 3,000 people.
Wow. Right?
Nonprofit. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm getting exposure, right? You can't pay for that. Mm-hmm. Anyone can go online and say, buy SEO and all that other stuff and position themselves to be the best, right? But my stuff was getting shown in front of tremendous amount of folks.
Absolutely.
Decision makers,
3,000 people.
right?
That's big.
And then my other thing was, okay, I'm going to start diving into like working with nonprofits. This is where my community engagement started to kick in. It's like I can take full creative control over some of these organizations. I could tell their stories, right? But the caveat of it was who sits on nonprofit boards?
A lot of
decision makers.
Yes, big decision
CEOs,
makers.
CFOs, executive directors. Mm-hmm. And what happened was it was this natural trend. And this wasn't like a quid pro quo process. Mm-hmm. This was like, hey, I just want to work with these organizations. But now we started getting job offers from your Golden Ones or your Safe Credit Unions, or because these folks were watching our stuff. It was like, oh, I saw you do that project for, Big Brothers Big Sisters. What would you do if we paid you for this? It's like, we would do the same thing. We don't know how to dumb down the work. Yeah. If we did a pro bono job and a full rate job, we would never be able to tell the difference. We don't know how to dumb it down.
I can tell you, I have seen you do that multiple times.
Sure.
And I remember from your place off of Freeport, was it Freeport and 12th Street to your place now, which is like, wow.
Yeah.
And just, you're absolutely right, Kenneth. The work that you've done, I've known people that you've done free work for, and I've known people that had big dollars, and I could not tell the difference.
Never been one. We don't take a project on for money. We don't take a project on for, any type of advantage in that capacity. We take projects on for the capacity to build strong relationships and tell incredible stories.
You know, one of the cool things that I want to give you some credit for is that I love just seeing you light up talking about that $150 check. Like you just lit up.
Oh, bro.
When you said that. Like it took you back to a moment in a time, and especially as a creative, and also let me say this very publicly, you were one of the first people that I talked to when I thought about creating Layers of Leadership podcast. I was like, how does this work? Tell me what's going on. What type of microphones I need?
You came and sat down in the office and chatted with me, and look at you, bro. You got it off the ground. And
I have some good partners.
Yeah, that's what it takes. The behind the scenes folks back here. A lot of people. That's the thing about our industry is a marginalizer right now, because I say anyone with literally one of these is my competition right now.
Wow.
Because everyone thinks that they can shoot video.
Sure.
Right? So they come to this capacity. I get clients who's like, yeah, what do you charge for this, XYZ? And it's like, oh, I get my little nephew to do it. He's doing good stuff right now on his iPhone. I said, okay. Bishop Lovelace told me one day, there's anointment in the word no. Right? And getting to the point in life where you could say, that's not a job that I want to do.
Yeah.
That doesn't fall within my moral compass, doesn't fall within our budgetary constraints. I always say, we're not the cheapest around. We don't have to be the cheapest.
Right.
You know,
you have a clientele.
We are focused on, we want to provide good work and good experience. And if that's something that someone's not willing to pay for, then that's fine. Because if you marginalize yourself,
Yes.
people will consistently marginalize you.
You know, we literally just had a conversation with Scott Syfax about that. We just had a conversation about that. So
I probably stole that from him.
we all probably did. So tell me, this passion for community, where does that come from?
It really comes from this idea of, I know that I have been a benefactor of strong leadership and exposure and opportunities, right? I always say this: I don't need you to give me anything. I don't need handouts. I need a level playing field.
Yes.
I need an opportunity,
Yes.
right? Let me compete with the folks out there. But don't put me in a box because you're looking at maybe what I represent or what I look like or how I dress, and don't think that we can perform.
Right.
Give us the opportunity. I tell my staff constantly, you know, if we get an opportunity to do, the differentiator for us is the fact that we are our people.
Yeah.
Our people is our differentiators. So I don't pay any homage to me. I pay 100% homage to the fact that I have an incredible team that helps
You have a good
facilitate
crew over
this.
there. Yes.
And that's all I am right now, is the visionary. You know, I come with a vision and a plan, and then I have them execute that by giving them the opportunities to do that. And hopefully fight, but it is a fight. I mean, I'm constantly negotiating on a day-to-day basis. You know, people also don't think about that when it comes to success or leadership. They think it's just a gift, like you're given that, like you're given these opportunities because you're lucky, or you did something shady. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with, go back to think about Outliers, or one of those Malcolm Gladwell books that talks about 10,000 hours.
Oh my goodness.
I put 10,000 hours in my craft on a day-to-day basis. So that's not because of luck. It's because I work hard and I'm passionate. I love what I do. I absolutely am passionate about that. And then when it comes to the community, I want to make sure that we are good stewards to the stories that are out there.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
There's incredible stories that are out there. And the fact that I've been, in my journeys over this world, I can distinctively recall doing interviews where I don't even know what the person is saying, their language, right? Wow. But I could see the passion in what they're saying, and I'm in there getting my little Martha Stewart on, where I'm, not Martha Stewart, what's the one that cried all the time? The interview lady that cried all the time. I can't think of it. Barbara Walters. Oh, Barbara Walters. I'm over there getting my Barbara Walters on because I'm just emotional. And I'm listening. I could see, I remember doing an interview in Haiti. This was after the earthquake, a couple years after the earthquake. And we were talking to this kid who's never seen, we went with this company called We Solar. They were putting in solar panels into areas like hospitals. Okay. Because they were off the grid. As far as a consistent,
that's good.
And
stuff,
we were
man.
doing that with this organization. We were documenting this, and some of these kids looking at a light bulb like they'd never seen a light bulb, and you could hear them talking. Now they're speaking in Haitian, which is kind of a French Creole, broken down French Creole. But I don't even know what they're saying, but I could tell what they're saying was passionate, emotional, and I was crying in the background on the camera. I mean, you saw the camera kind of shake a couple times because I was getting emotional, but that was just being a good steward to their story. And that's what's been the biggest, we don't do the same thing on a day-to-day basis. We do, people ask if we could do something. We certainly can. We'll figure it out. If you look at our portfolio of work,
it's incredible.
We've probably done thousands of different types of videos. Now we've kind of partitioned to this area where we are focusing on a vertical. Okay. So we don't have to do every little thing. I've done quinceañeras, weddings, funerals, all of it and above, live events, everything, commercial, but we focus now on our vertical.
There it is.
So that's kind of where we landed.
Love it. Well, as we get ready to close out this conversation, I'm interested in hearing what the future looks like, not only for you, but also for KJ2 Productions.
Yeah.
And then with that being said, any jewels or advice you would give anybody, any creative who is trying to come up and be successful in this space, but keeps on kind of bumping their head in the road. So,
yeah, I think it's a great question. Two great questions. The forecast, I'll address that one first, is that for KJ2 Productions, it is not about me.
Okay.
That's why kind of this transition, a lot of people have heard I've been trying to change my name to Kenneth a little bit to kind of, and that's more so because I'm trying to get the concept that this is a KJ deal.
Yeah.
It's a team. KJ2 Productions is not me. It is a team of people.
Team, yeah.
Right? So just kind of associating myself with that name KJ sometimes confuses it. And I don't want that to be cluttered.
Gotcha.
Right? I want to be very clear that the success of our business is not because of me.
It's the team.
You know, I am a small part of it. It is because of my incredible team. So what I see with KJ is being a sustainable. People get this mindset mixed up. They think a company is a company because it's sustainable, whether you're there or not. That's a true company.
Yep.
I read a book by John H. Johnson years ago that talked about passive income. He was like, hey,
Oh, my goodness.
if I'm sleeping with my wife in my Chicago penthouse and someone goes to Walgreens and picks up an Ebony magazine or a Jet magazine, I'm making money.
I'm making money on it.
You know, if someone goes to Sally's Hair Supply and they get a bottle of pink oil lotion, I'm making
Not
money.
the pink oil
The pink oil
lotion.
lotion, brother. You remember the pink oil lotion? Yeah,
My mom still have pink oil lotion.
And he was like, I'm making money. I was like, how do you make money when you're in
When
the
you
bed
sleep.
sleeping?
Yep.
And he was just saying how you can operate a business to the point where the business runs itself. So that's the idea of this company. I wanted to make sure that whether I'm there or not, I've experienced health issues over the last couple of years, or just, you know, stress issues where I can't always be there. So I want to make sure that that company operates whether I'm there or not.
Right.
So that's the future. The second thing that you mentioned was a nugget. I would really stress to people that want to be successful to get out of their own way and collaborate.
Okay.
Create, like I tell my staff all the time, I embrace creative conflict. I want conflict because if I'm cracking the whip all the time, I'd rather pull reins, meaning that we sit in a creative meeting and people are saying, hey, let's do this, let's do this, let's do that. I want to be like, whoa, that's a lot.
Okay.
Right? As opposed to me, come on, let's generate some, some content.
some momentum.
So I would say probably the biggest strategic shift that we did a few years ago was like, hey, let's look at like strategic partnerships.
Okay.
We don't need to dwell in 1,000 different things. Let's stay in our vertical. And this is what we're good at. So then let's partner with other organizations or other creatives to make something really cool, because the benefactor of that is the end result is the client.
Yes.
Right? And now I'm not spinning my wheels doing some shit. I can,
You good.
okay. I'm not doing some shit that I'm not good at.
Got it.
I'm watering down my product, right?
Which is huge.
Which is huge because I don't know how to dumb it down.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be over committing and under delivering in any capacity.
Yeah.
I want to make sure
love
that
that.
no matter who we work with, we're going to put our foot in it.
That's a big nugget.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I just say for any, especially in the creative space, because creative people get marginalized all the time because they think, again, you go back to this, they think, oh, my little nephew can do it. Well, have your nephew do it. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not my client. That's fine.
Right.
If you don't, so I say to this, do not marginalize yourself as a creative. Make sure that you set a price, you set an expectation, and you live upon that. And if people don't want to do that they don't believe in you, then that's okay. It's okay to say no. I go back to the whole, like I said, Bishop Lovelace. There's anointment in the word no, brother.
There it is.
But I can't say no to you, man.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any parting words? One, any books, podcasts you recommend? And then also, how can folks find you?
Well, I say this podcast
appreciate
is
that.
one that definitely, because you're bringing some really incredible leaders in this region
Thank you.
to talk about really solid content. That's one. Probably one of the most critical books I ever read was Crucial Conversations.
Oh, yeah.
I can go down the litmus of like business type book, but that was one big for me because I had to know how to manage conflict.
Yes.
And not let conflict be deteriorate me, but how do I take that and turn it around and embrace it?
Absolutely.
And use that to the positive. So Crucial Conversations. And then you can find us, this sounds so pluggish.
Yeah,
but
it
you
is
can find
a plug.
You can find us
Absolutely.
at KJ2 Productions.
Okay.
Yeah, just look up in the sky. You'll probably see something that we... Yeah.
Well, I
at
appreciate
KJ2
you,
Productions
brother.
on all handles.
There it is. Well, it's an honor and pleasure to have you here, my
Absolutely.
friend, and thank you for this. And I'm sure that there are going to be folks looking you up.
Hey,
And
appreciate
that's a
you,
wrap.
Doc.
Thank you.
Thank you.